I got a question for everybody. Where does spirituality and money intersect? And what does that have to do with anal sex? On this episode of the 74th Golden Mike, we've got our girl Double J, Jessie Johnson from Jessie Johnson Coaching, and we are going to talk about all of that and more. I'm especially interested in spirituality and money. And what does that have to do with anal sex? You just talked about it. The metaphor that was just thrown around the internet, that just shut down the internet. We're going to talk about it on the Golden Mike today. Jessie Johnson, coach that not only works with other entrepreneurs, but very purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to grow with grace and ease and joy and claim those 5-figure months, 6-figure years, 7-figure years. She was just in Entrepreneur Magazine, which talks about your story, Jessie, about doing amazing things. I think one of the most noble things a person can ever be is a teacher, and then moving to entrepreneurship. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your story. But before we go into all of that, y'all, my name is Cordon. I am a positive psychology coach. Let's break it down into two things. Number one, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you right now watching Jessie Johnson and Cordon? How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 10? It's that simple. The second thing when it comes to positive psychology, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you're living in your full purpose? If you're like a 9 or 10 on both, you don't need a positive psychology coach. Live your life, baby. Live your life. Now, Jessie Johnson, I'm going to ask you the question. There's already a whole bunch of people up in this room. I'm going to already ask you this question. How happy, or are you living in happiness and fulfillment today?
Today, yes.
Yes. Cheers. Water and chocolate milk over there. I'm just kidding.
Chai.
I accused her of drinking a Yoo-hoo in front of me a couple minutes ago.
I mean, to be fair, I am eating chocolate pudding for breakfast.
Oh my goodness. Once a teacher, always a teacher. Now, did you dip your chicken nuggets did you ever dip your chicken nuggets in the chocolate pudding? That was my jam back in the day.
Oh man, what a fantastic idea. No wonder you're a positive psychologist. You know how to bring the joy.
Dude, you can't have the salty without the sweet. You got to bring them together.
I was big on the chicken nuggets and honey.
Oh,
always. If they didn't have honey, I wasn't going to do it, which is why I'm like, oh yeah, the chocolate pudding, that would have totally worked for me.
There you go. And so for those of you watching the live show right now or watching the replay, if you're feeling good and living at your full purpose right now, Jessie Johnson, put up your hand. Give me some hearts over there in California, in your new house in California. Give us some hearts, y'all. Let us know that you're living life out loud and you are not apologetic about it. Wink. So here's the other thing. Positive psychology, a lot of people think, is all about the shits and the giggles, the rainbows, the hearts 24/7. To be quite honest with you, it's about the ups and the downs and the all-arounds of life, y'all. And the thing is that when you have the salty and the sweet, that is living life at your full range. So some people might be like, you know what, Cordon? I was happy last week. I'm not happy today. I am not happy today. That's cool. That is cool. Or some people might be saying, you know what? I was living as a teacher. I was in higher education for 14 years. And you know what? My purpose is falling out. What's going on? And it might not feel like you're living in your full purpose anymore. That is part of the journey. That is part of the journey. That's the salty and the sweet right there. That's what positive psychology is all about. It's your story. It's your hero's journey. Your heart is beating just like Jessie and mine. Give us a thumbs up if you're living life. Just let us know that you're living life. Now, this is the big one. Let's see if Jessie Johnson's going to do this. Let's see if Jessie Johnson's going to do this. This one's the big one. This is what I do the most research on a day-to-day basis. It's the idea of hope theory. It's the idea that whether you're a 1 on a scale of 10 or you're an 11 on a scale of 10, that you feel like tomorrow is going to be a better day than today. It doesn't feel like you're dissatisfied with today. You just know that tomorrow is going to be even better. If you're feeling hopeful, if you're feeling optimistic, there's another button down there. It's called the wow face. Jesse Johnson and I are about to make the wow face. Jesse Johnson, what do you got with that wow face? Ah! Explosion! Explosion! We've got some folks tuning in. Jorge's tuning in from Puerto Rico. I got a special announcement for you, Jorge. We're making Jorge t-shirts for like Golden Mike fans because Jorge's tuned in so much. It is good to see you. Love, I hope you're doing well. Melanie Klein, another unapologetic person we know. It is good to see you. Love, Jesse Johnson and Marc Cordon. Reciprocity. We love you too. We love you
so much, Mel.
Yeah, so much. Mark and Jorge saying it again. Mark and the beautiful Jesse.
Well, thank you, Jorge.
And what is this?
Those are like in my mind, those are like Reiki blessings, right?
Okay.
Like any energy healer is just like sending positive vibes. It's like a very serious spiritual thing, but then those little exclamation points kind of things above make it a little more playful.
I thought it meant field goal.
That's also amazing. I mean, come on. Field goal. Yeah, do it. Send me a little paper. What do they call it? You know, like in high school? I feel like we're going back to high school.
We're gonna kick it back to the old school. We're gonna go all over the place today. Amanda Huggins, good to see you. Is that a high five or a wave?
That's totally a wave. Totally a wave.
So we're waving back, Amanda. Hope you're doing well. So given that long and extenuous introduction, let us not do any more of this and go right into your story. Jesse Johnson, what is your story?
How far back do you want me to go, Mark?
How far back do you want to go, Jesse Johnson?
Both my parents were psychologists.
Right on.
I was going to be named Jesse, whether I was a girl or a boy. Same spelling. I landed with the girl body. And I was great. I was really great at school. And so it's not really that surprising that I ended up teaching. There was a real value system in my family and in my own life around school. It was like, this is something that I'm good at, I believe in, I have fun doing. And it wasn't like my dream growing up to become a teacher, but I'm so glad that I did. It's almost like from the vantage point that I have now, if I zoom out, I can see that everything that happened, it's all been by design. Right. So I didn't want to be a high school math teacher. That was not my childhood fantasy, but I became a high school math teacher and found my passion for improvement, really. Yeah. Venn by design. I love it. It's because the schools were a place, I've worked in New York City public schools in a very low income population. The truth is in New York City, it's a low income business. I almost want to say there's not really enough of anything in the New York City public schools. Even in the really good schools, there's still not enough. It's even and when I say really good school, I just mean the schools where kids are being pretty successful. It's there's still not enough of those schools, right? So it's there's not enough textbooks, there's not enough money, there's not enough. And I loved my school, I loved my kids, I loved my colleagues, and it was like a vacuum. All this intelligence, all this devotion, all this human energy. I mean, there were, it was a small school, but there were 500 of us probably total in terms of all the kids and all the faculty put together, showing up in this building every single day, just, building great relationships and having a good time and maybe learning some stuff, but fundamentally not changing the structural system that put those low-income kids in a school like that in the first place and put those, white people of privilege with Ivy League degrees into this position of noble service. It's it just felt to me so frustrating that it wasn't actually working. We were just, in so many ways, we were just perpetuating the system that we were meant to transform. And
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No. Keep going. Absolutely not.
It was like, yeah. So, and this is also, again, easier to see from a little bit more of a distance, but I was frustrated so much of the time that things were so hard, that it was so hard to make things work better. It was very discouraging. I'm one of the most positive, resilient people. You know, I was the person that came into school every time, like every freaking Monday, with like, guys, I just learned this new thing. It's going to change everything. Like, this is going to be great. But so I, you know, on the outside, I think was quite energized and positive. But on the inside, it was like, God damn it, like how much energy is going to go into this until something like flips a switch? I ended up going into coaching. I worked with teams of math teachers, teams of principals. Like I was working in schools all over New York City, about 30 schools, doing professional development. Same thing. Like I thought that being in a position of power, working on curriculum, working with lots of schools, working with administrators, wouldn't that change something? Like Mark, like this much, like a hair. Like, so the impact was so freaking small. It was so frustrating because there I was, 35, brilliant, like whatever, but like pretty young. I shouldn't have tapped out at 35, but it was like, I couldn't see, there was no more room for him. I shouldn't say that. There was tons of room for improvement, but it was like, there wasn't the room for me to grow in terms of my power and impact.
Yep. Now let me ask you this. It wasn't, you know, you kind of grew up in the schooling psychology system. You're very fortunate. You're grateful to be going into, you know, going into the school systems. Were you going into the school systems with this idea that, yeah, there's some systematic fuckage that's there, and I need to, so you came in.
Because I was a math teacher. I was good at math in school, but I knew I was like the one kid who was able to learn in the way that they were teaching. In 4th grade, my teacher just literally gave me the math textbook and I worked by myself and I did great. Mm-hmm. But I have no idea. I mean, it's like my dad was good at math. I got some neurons going on in my brain that worked in that pattern seeking thing. I had some confidence, maybe, I don't know anybody else outside of, you know, like the 0.001% of super math geeks who can learn freaking math from a textbook. That's not how people learn.
Nope.
So I knew I was an anomaly, and I thought it was a problem in education. So when I started my career in education, that was really my mission. I wanted to change the way that math was taught. I really wanted to change what it meant to go to school. That's the truth.
And what was that vision for you? Like when you thought about what it meant to school, I wouldn't say system, right? What schools would look like, you know, and what kind of dent that would mean. What was it that you had envisioned?
We could talk for the next 2 hours about that just on its own.
No, we can't talk for the next 2 hours because I need to know about this anal sex thing.
I had a lot of math teachers who didn't really know their subject, who weren't passionate about it, and who weren't really all that interested in the way that I was thinking about it. So those were kind of the first 3 things that I was just interested in, helping teachers actually understand the deeper concepts that they were teaching so that they could, you know, it wasn't just like rote memorization, here's this 3-step formula, but like, here's why, like we can pretend to be like Euclid and like the original mathematicians who came up with this shit in the first place. Like, let's be Pythagoras, let's work on those problems. Like I had a big vision around that. And then as I went on, and really this became clear when I started coaching, I worked at New Visions for Public Schools for 4 years on a project called Accessing Algebra Through Inquiry. It was a federally funded grant. We were, our mission really was this was the thing that was cool about it, was that the mission, it wasn't like written in the grant, but when we talked about it, it was like, oh, the mission of this program, of this project is actually to change what it means to go to school. Yes, score. Yep. Like, it was the right project for me. And what we were focused on there was helping teachers focus on, you'll love this, focus on what actually makes teaching hard, which is understanding and drawing out student thinking. When teachers are focused on just like getting through the day, having planning and grading and just getting kids to behave, then they really can't focus on that other thing. It's too much. It's like there's not enough bandwidth. So that's what the project was focused on. It was great, but the challenge, Mark, was that no one had ever seen it done. None of the teachers that we were training had ever experienced being taught this way. Yep. So it was like, the paradigm shift required was so massive because systemically we all experienced the kind of math education that inspired me to want to change it in the first place. Yep. And I'm just talking about math education because that's what I specialized in. But the other piece was this social justice piece, that I wanted to go in there, and everyone that I have ever worked with in New York City public schools, every teacher I've ever met, that's part of why they're there. They want to advocate for equity, and they believe that education is a way to do that. But unfortunately, it just seems to perpetuate the problem. Because you got a bunch of white, privileged, middle class or upper class teachers, and they don't know what they did to become middle class. They can't transmit that value system because they didn't do anything to develop it themselves. They just were raised in it. And so you
don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're identifying, and for those of you, there's a lot of folks in here right now, JJ, who are picking up what you're throwing down. Stephanie Smart, her eyeballs just turned into hearts. Melanie Klein, oh yeah. Jesse Johnson talking about systems and privilege, my jam. Yeah. Yes, so good, Jesse. Stephanie Smart, so true. We knew we were at the end when the principal at my son's school told us we were out of yeses at the beginning of 4th grade. And so in many ways, folks are locked into staying within that system because of a lack of resources. The lack of resources drain the creative anabolic energy that brought us to this place in the first place, and we're left indoctrinating folks when in fact we came in to be social justice advocates, liberators, get people to think freedom, right? And so in so many ways, you've got some folks who are locked in, and then 30 years later, they're saying, well, I don't know if your clients say this, but I've heard maybe a client or a friend or whatever, come up to me and say, it's been 40 fucking years and I feel like I've been completely indoctrinated and blah, 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 blah by society. Well, how much of that has been schooling, right? How much of us have gone through years of schooling and told, well, if you don't get math from the textbook, you don't fall in the normal curve, Cordon. You don't fall in the normal curve.
Yeah. Sorry. Side note, as a math teacher, this doesn't come up as often, but I worked as a math educator for 12 years. I can count on my hands the number of people out of hundreds or maybe even thousands of people that I met outside of my field, right? Like when I wasn't at a math conference, who told me, oh, I loved math when I was in school.
Exactly.
Or, oh, I use algebra every day. Consistently, and of course at the time it frustrated the hell out of me. Every single person that I met, literally, with this many exceptions, was like, oh yeah, I fucking never use that shit. Why do they teach that anyway?
Well, let me ask you this.
I'm throwing that in there, to piggyback on what you're saying, because it's like we literally traumatize our whole population through the way that we teach math in particular, other things too. And then they never use it. They don't see the value. It doesn't actually connect to anything. They don't change their class as a result of it. I mean, I'm being a little, I'm generalizing. Okay, I know that there are exceptions to this, but the vast, if we zoom out, the way they come in is the way they go out. If they were born in a low-income house that never finished high school, statistically speaking, that's how they exit. And the systems in the schools are not put in place to change that. So the only way that it changes is if that one person, that 13-year-old or whatever, decides, I'm fucking here for more.
Yep.
And goes against every paradigm, every rule, every norm, right? Because it breaks the whole system when someone does that.
And how many students did you see that came through that were ready to break that were that self-actualized in your tenure of teaching and even consulting, where folks would come in and be like, yeah, this, I have this many students every year bucking the system. They figured it out.
Okay, this is going to be very painful for me and you and everyone watching. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
None.
Okay. Brutal.
And just to be clear, because I have lots of old students, graduates, who are on my Facebook page and they saw the Forbes feature and were like, woohoo, my old teacher is now a 7-figure business owner, right? So I just want to be clear, those are amazing human beings and they have done amazing things in their lives. But the success that they got from the school that I taught at didn't change their trajectory significantly. Gotcha. In terms of privilege, socioeconomic status, confidence, like what the kids came in with is what they left with in general.
Okay. For those of you tuning in, it is Golden Mike 74. We are with JJ. We are talking about education. We are talking about her story. We are talking about, it's a back to school episode like I've never heard before.
It really is.
So we're talking about chicken nuggets and maybe trapper keepers. And now we're talking about systems and sort of rigid systems and how we can navigate through those systems and hustle through those systems and those things and sort of the reality of what Jesse's seen. Now, Jesse, you could have left something like this being very bitter and burnt out. And we were just talking about that. There was just a story on you, an entrepreneur, about how you went from a system that can spit out both students and teachers into this land of catabolic fear and anger, helplessness. And you actually turned this into something that was like both beneficial for you and beneficial for the people that you're serving. Where did this switch happen?
We're going the long version of the story, but that's you just brought it back to the short version, because in many ways it was like the what I would say now is that the public school system, and I think this is true nationwide. I've done a lot of different work in lots of different parts of the world. I think that this, in particular, parts of the country, I see this everywhere. The system itself is embedded with scarcity. The mindset around public schools is one of scarcity. So it's a great actually lens for looking at mindset and its impact on things, because there's phenomenal people working in the system. There's phenomenal students going to school in the system. Maybe it's not enough. It's not as much as we want, but there's millions and millions of dollars going into schools, right? So much human energy. It's shocking. And yet not really anything. It's like maintaining the status quo, if that, on a system-wide scale. And so when I wanted more, that's just the basic truth. The contrast of working so hard, being so good at what I was doing, so masterful. I was at the top of not only my game, but at the top of the field. Like, you can't really go higher than I was. And it wasn't enough. It wasn't making enough difference. I wanted to make more of a difference, and I wanted to make more money. I wanted to make more impact, and I wanted more integration in my life. I wanted my spiritual skill set to be relevant explicitly.
Now, what did that dissonance look like for you at that point? Because as you're saying that, I'm thinking back to when I was in higher education. I hit the 14-year mark, and I was like, fucking on the university senate, like, they're paying for my PhD, like, ostensibly everything is good to go. And then I'm driving home 11 o'clock at night after my, I bought pizzas for like my group, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm a fucking 8-figure person here taking a $70,000 job. And then I get out of bed and I'm like, who the F was I to think that? I'm going back to my job because I'm doing the greatest service, because the greatest service doesn't mean collecting a paycheck. And I don't know if you went through any of that, but I definitely did. And definitely when I was doing social justice work as well, you were always doing it as a passion project and never thinking of it as passion plus money or passion plus entrepreneurship. So what did that look like for you? Like that dissonance when you were like,
I was pissed at my team all the time. Oh, bless their hearts. They put up with me for so long. I was just constantly unsatisfied. Mm-hmm. And I think as a teacher, I had that dissatisfaction, but I turned it on myself. And then as I developed professionally, I was like, no, I really am. I did all the work. I did so much personal development and so much professional development. Maybe I'm not that I'm perfect, but I should be fucking having more of an impact. God damn it. Like I was just feeling that every day, day after day after day. And so then when my team, bless their hearts, would come in with any, like if they were positive, if they were like, yeah, we're making a difference. Oh, you know what? This is hilarious. We got a new supervisor. He actually reminds me a lot of Chris Winfield. He's got a lot of the same skill set. He's like super good with people. He's really like good, positive energy. He came in, new supervisor, and he was positive all the time. Like, yeah, Jesse, things are going great. Like, things are going great. The schools are really happy. Like, you're doing great. And I just wanted to fucking slaughter him every day. Like, how can you be so easygoing about this, man? Like, there's problems, right? So that was how it was showing up just on a daily basis.
Gotcha.
And I think the project was ending. And I knew, I was like, what am I going to do? Keep doing this? This sucks. Yeah. Not because it sucks, but because I can just feel there's so much more for me. I don't know what that is, but I know there's so much more.
Oh, am I hearing the beginning of like submitting? To? I don't know, perfect? Something greater. Yeah. I did need to throw it out too. Like if it's us two talking, but I'm sure that many people out there have put it on themselves, the dissatisfaction and being like, I'm just angry all the time. I remember doing social justice work and a student coming in and saying, Cordon, I think I have the solution. And it was a happiness course. Mm-hmm. And I was like, are you serious? We are at war right now. Take this shit out of my office. Like, I was so angry. I was such an angry social justice person. And in education, and I was locked into a way that it was me versus the system. And I needed to take the system down, versus having any compassion for anything, any humans in the systems or any people caught in the systems, or having any compassion for myself. So I love it. It. And now let's talk about Venn diagrams, dude, because I feel like we're going there. You're talking about maybe hinting at submitting to something greater than yourself, letting go of some of that anabolic or catabolic energy. Like what happened here with this Venn diagram?
In terms of the spiritual money thing?
Yeah, I mean, you got a Venn diagram of spirituality and money. And I think that this is a great way to share with folks as a solution now, because it's one thing for people to bellyache about systems theory. It's another thing for people to come in and say, well, what does the solution look like? And I feel like you being on the show and showing me this Venn diagram it's definitely a solution.
Yeah. Well, and I also just want to acknowledge and honor, I'm answering you totally honestly, but I don't want anything that I'm saying to diminish the work that people are still doing in social justice and public schools. Because that stuff, you know, I mean, there is a part of me sometimes it's like wants to really be rebellious and like just cut through the whole thing. But I so honor, I learned so much in that system. And it is because of that system that I am doing what I'm doing now, and everything that I'm doing is in service to transforming the same mission that I had in the beginning. So I just want to be really clear. Like, I have so much respect and love for the people inside the system. I have less respect for the system, right? Like, my criticism is systemic, not human. So the work we were talking before, like the thing that's necessary in order to break out of the system in public school, for example, is the same thing that's needed to break out of the family system or the societal program. And so I'm just flagging that because I saw in one of the comments, I think someone said, like, not everybody has the resources to change their class. I actually think that nobody is given the resources to change their class. It's a radical thing, whether you're low income and you're trying to become middle class. It's a radical thing if you're living in poverty and homelessness and trying to become, like, just have a, you know, house in the projects. It's radical if you are born a millionaire and you want to become a billionaire. Like, they're changing our class is a massively uncomfortable thing, no matter what the starting point is. And so part of what actually has been really exciting for me in doing the work that I've done as an entrepreneur is that I now understand how to do that, because I am not living a middle class lifestyle. I was raised middle class, but that's not what I'm doing now. And so now I understand that. Now I could actually teach my low income kids how to do that. I couldn't do that when I was teaching them because I didn't know how I did that. I could teach them math, but I couldn't transmit, here's how you change the fundamental operating structure of your whole framework for making decisions and living in your life. Now I can. So that's part of why I launched the YouTube channel, which our last 2 weeks ago was a Venn diagram day. And because that's where the millennials are watching shit. That's where they're looking for stuff. So that's where I'm, like, transmitting these mindset teachings. And this is my long vision, right? The long game is millions of subscribers who are using this to actually determine what they want to submit to, as you said, surrender to, what's their bigger purpose that may in fact call them to do some of the most uncomfortable things that they have ever been called to do. Because that's what we're here for. So
I'm hearing some social media for social good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm loving this. So, I mean,
I'm getting a piece of paper. Keep talking to me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right on. So I'm just going to go down. Klein and Smart, you guys are on fire right now. Melanie, your YouTube channel is amazing. I constantly refer people over. So you launched a couple weeks ago. It's already getting around. Stephanie, it is your whole framework. I see this between myself and my in-laws. So people are already using this in different domains. Fantastic. Love and respect for the people and maintaining your critique of the system. Yeah, absolutely.
That, just hearing that reflection, Mel, I'm just like, yeah, it's the same thing with us. Like, so the system that we're talking about on the, like, this is a national system when we talk about public school. I have an internal system that's just inside me.
Yep.
And I need to be willing to respect and trust and love and affirm myself and be critical of the system or the program or the subconscious that is driving me that isn't in alignment with my big vision. And that's a real sweet spot, right? To be able to be totally compassionate and loving, like, and this isn't working. We're not going to keep moving forward this way. So in my life, for example, that had a lot to do with taking responsibility for how other people feel. I was real good at that. I'm still real good at that. I can make you feel real good.
Well, I love the dynamism of it, right? I love
Yeah.
the dynamism because a lot of people think that you're either on one side or another. What side are you on, JJ? You know, are you on one side? Are you with us or are you against us? And in so many ways, part of the radicalism is, well, it's not a really I versus you, it's a we thing, right? And also at the same time, I love the fact that there's something very universal about it. This episode, if you can read between the lines, is not a critique on the education system. It's more so a critique on the way the status quo works, including our own status quo mind that wants to keep us living at a status quo. So I'm loving it. You've got paper. Class is in session. JJ, what do you got?
Well, so can we talk about you a little bit, just as an example?
Of course.
Or we can bring in Mel or Stephanie or something and just do the Venn diagram tool that I taught in that YouTube video, kind of
let's do it.
A little more interactive way. So.
Okay, and I'm also throwing out to anyone who also wants to jump in and be with us, the show link. So you can jump in the show and ask questions. So let's do it, JJ.
So I really like using math metaphors, of course, math tools, right? So the Venn diagram, if you guys remember from middle school, you probably studied this. It might have been shitty, but you know what I'm talking about. Right? This is such a good concept for working with mindset. And by the way, I just want to throw this in there. Any transformation has to include both a mindset component and an action component. So for me, the mindset work, and I see this in all my clients, it sets up the action to actually have an impact. So I'm just flagging that because this is like step 1 of 2. Just the whole thing that we're doing, because once you actually do this work, then you have to actually go out and make it real. So
now Jesse, I just wanted to throw in, I wanted to see if you agreed or disagreed, is in some of the work that I do, I feel like the mindset work needs to change first before the actions change. Because if you just go and do the actions, you can sometimes feel a certain amount of inauthenticity. You're doing the actions, but it's just like, mindset is
not. Question. I think about this all the time. I think that there are situations where. So actually, I'll tell you a fun story. One of my coaches, David Nagel, when I first started working with him, he gave me this assignment to go out on the street and ask people for $20. I had to do it every week for 6 months, and this was an example. I'm just giving this as an example because there were days when my mindset was right and there were days when my mindset was not right. And for sure that shifted my experience of taking the action. But there was also real power in, I'm doing this, whatever my mind is doing. Like, I'm going to do my best to have a good time. I'm going to do my best to make this really fun for me and the people that I'm talking to. But I'm fucking doing this, whether it's easy and fun or not. And there's something there that without that commitment to action, then you can use your shitty day to slow you down, to actually sort of drop the accountability. And so there is, I think, a balance there where it's like, you gotta, I agreed with everything that you said.
Yeah.
Because I experienced that day to day. And it's why I teach the way I teach. And I also recognize that sometimes if you just take the action, right? For example, I teach all my clients to pick up the phone and make cold calls. Whether they have all the clients that they need or not, that sales are a transformational practice, and just doing that, whether they feel good or bad, will change their lives. So this is another example. It's like making yourself uncomfortable is necessary to grow. And sometimes the subconscious will tell the story that I'm not in a good place. I shouldn't make any cold calls today because I'm just not in my center. Like, I need to center and ground. No, fuck that. Get on the fucking phone,
Yep.
So.
love it. I love it. And I'm sorry to take you off. Let's go into that Venn diagram. SE overlapping. Let's see if I can help you out too.
So this is the spiritual, this is the entrepreneurial, this is just one tool. So a lot of people in my community are one or the other, right? They're either like they're spiritual teachers, coaches, healers, they lead retreats, right? But they don't necessarily think of their what is actually bringing money into their lives as a business. Yeah. They don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs. And then I also know a lot of entrepreneurs, more and more, who rock their business but don't necessarily feel like they're integrated. Just like I did when I was working in schools. I didn't feel like my spiritual self was fully welcome. And so I teach this tool just to kind of help people get clear. So like for you, Marc, I mean, let me just ask, do you feel like is the word spiritual a value of yours? Like, is that an important piece for you?
Yes.
Okay, so give me some words for what just thinking about spiritual or spirituality, what qualities or values fit in there?
Larger than self, greater good, connection. So the cognitive, the heart, and the intuitive connection, connecting with the outer intuitive, like, so maybe collective consciousness. It's just anything more than Cordon, which is a lot. So
I love that. Okay, so I wrote down as much as I could of what you just said there in the spirit.
Oh man, I'm getting a money session right here. I'm getting a money session from an eight-figure coach. Fuck yeah.
I love you, Marc. Okay, so now drop that and now focus on what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Autonomy, liberation, freedom, creation, but not from the standpoint of I have this, like, I've brought new energy into the world. It's more so from the standpoint of I've taken existing energy and I've done it in my own novel way, which is a different kind of creation. So, but creating from that standpoint, operating with a shit ton of resources is something that is becoming even more valuable for me.
Great. And I'm just going to throw in there, just for fun. Now I'm hijacking your entrepreneurial circle a little bit, but I feel like work goes in there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, right? You show up, you actually have to like show up and do shit.
Yeah.
So action,
yep.
I'm adding in there.
Yep.
Money, I think you were talking about that with resources, but I'm just going to make that explicit. Yep. So is there anything else you want to add to that?
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
All right, great. So the question now is there anything, and I invite everybody that's on the call to weigh in here, is there anything that Marc has talked about, and of course, Marc, for you, is there anything that you've named in either of these circles that you feel like couldn't go in the intersection? That it actually is like, no, that really is just entrepreneurial, or no, that really is just spiritual. Is there anything that doesn't fit in both? Let's just go through them. So
I don't see anything that I actually, okay. Yeah, let's go through them.
Right? Like larger than self, the more than Cordon.
Yeah.
The truth is that anyone who has a business, if they're really just thinking about their business for themselves, is fucked from the beginning. Every business is meant to be of service. Whether it's a business that you believe in or not, the ultimate foundation of that business is to help people solve a problem that they have. Whether it's a freaking robot vacuum cleaner or a picture frame or a coaching service, like stuffed animals, right? They're all meant to help people in some way and make their lives better. You like that stuffed animal, didn't you?
I love that stuffed animal.
I use this in my coaching every day. That's why he's here. This is my little dino. So
8-figure dino.
Yep. So the larger than self piece, and so actually this is really fun because as long as the larger than self piece is only in the spiritual circle, in anyone's mind, right now we're talking about yours, it's actually limiting the success of your business. As soon as you bring that larger than self concept into the intersection, the business is going to do better because you're thinking about your audience, you're thinking about other people, you're thinking about, also, side note, this connects really nicely to the resources piece, right? When you allow yourself to think about the more than you, then immediately you're aware of the other resources that are available to you in your network, in your bank account, in your own history, experience, right? There's so much emphasis in entrepreneurial communities around story, right? That's a resource. So, right, it's like my whole teaching here is that not only can everything in each of these circles be in the intersection, but that in fact, when you mentally choose to create a business and spiritual integration, that both will be better for it. You will enjoy your life more, your business will explode more quickly, more hugely, and your spiritual life will develop more if these things are conceptually the same for you. So
that's what I struggled with at first, is when you had me tease them out into distinct, when you wanted me to tease them out, I was like, oh, like they're all threaded together. Yet still, people are recognizing that there's smoke coming out of my brain right now, dude.
This is my favorite thing about you, Marc, that you're so like, I actually meant to mention this in the beginning. In the very beginning of the call, you were like talking about like just how happy and asking everyone how happy. And I just felt the vulnerability in my body, like as if you just kind of like took off a couple layers, onion peel, whatever, over my heart. And it was like literally more sensitive. And the reason that I felt that is because you do that. You let your mind be blown on your own show, and you don't hide it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I see you do it every time you host someone.
Well, I think that's why I know that I'm in the right space right now, is because, not only do I get to hit record on, but I'm constantly blown away after these shows. And this is something that makes complete and total sense. Now, for those of us who are going through, for those of you who watch this replay, if you're tuning in right now, because you just missed money coaching right there. So for those of us who are looking at our Venn diagrams right now, and we're like, so Jesse, like I'm kind of like this right now. How do you start moving so that it's a complete intersection? Or is that something we should be careful of? Like, talk to us about, like, now that we're getting more aware of this, what kind of strategies can we take to move it closer together?
Well, so this is where I think the intellect has a tremendous value, right? And actually, again, if you are overly spiritual, I don't want to say overly, how can you be overly spiritual? But if you find yourself really resonating with the spiritual bucket and not with the entrepreneurial bucket, the intellect is actually a tool for grounding here. And so to really slow down, we only went through really one of these, but to slow down and look at each one, right? Stephanie was talking about work, right? The possibility that work would go in here. That's an interesting question. Like, what does it mean for work to be in the spiritual circle? I mean, for me, I'm literally not interested in doing anything that's not spiritual, and ever. Like having that experience of connection of more than me is so important to me. I don't ever want to be disconnected from that. So actually, ooh, this is fun. I've never done this before, but I want another color.
It's a double color. We're going into the 9-figure coaching right now. She's busting out another color.
I'm going to propose, oh gosh, this is even imperfect, but I'm going to propose that anything that's only there, only on the entrepreneurial side, that's not on the spiritual side, is ego. Although as soon as I wrote it, I was like, even the ego is spiritual. So I can't even do that. But conceptually, If there's something that we're like, no, that doesn't go in the spiritual part, then what the hell is that for?
Well, so that's what I wanted to ask you. I don't think that there's any mistakes, right? So when you said overly spiritual, I was like, okay, let's say that somebody comes in and they're looking at their Venn, and not only they starting off looking at their Venn, but they're like, holy shit, like this side, the spiritual side is huge. And then like my entrepreneur side is small.
Oh, I like that.
That could be seen as overly spiritual. So this is obviously a leading question, but would the strategy be, well, should I shrink my spirituality? Should I take what's in here and put exactly? It's not a sick, right? Big S, little e. Like, what do you do when you see something that's disproportionate like that?
So there's two things I want to throw in here. One, I do this event a couple times a year called Money, Spirituality, and the Bridge Between. The next one's going to be in October. We're announcing soon. And the first thing that I do in that event is draw the Venn diagram for, it's similar to this, money and spirituality. And I ask people a couple of, provocative questions about this. And then I do the big reveal, which is very similar to what I'm about to do with you, which is that every fucking thing is spiritual.
You trickster.
Right?
Trickster.
If we're really honest, right? There's nothing that doesn't go in that big ass circle. And so then the second thing, because what you're saying I think is relevant. It's like if you fucking have a business and you're not making money, or you're not making money at the level that you want to, or you're not serving at the level that you want to, that's the universe calling you to a higher standard. It means there's more people that want what you've got. It means that there's more people who need the support and service that you provide, or the product that you sell, or whatever. And so it's important to develop that entrepreneurial circle. And the point of this whole thing, whichever one resonates with you, is to help you do whatever inner gymnastics you need to in order to give yourself permission to prioritize the things that actually matter to you.
Fucking brilliant. You are a trickster. You are a coyote. I am asking great questions.
High five, Mark.
Stephanie Smart, I know you've got a retreat coming up, Stephanie Smart. That connection is why she's an entrepreneur. Loving it. This is like my soul song work, but I don't do it quite this way, and can see the overlap differently. You're welcome. On behalf of Mark and Jesse.
And now I want to know what the soul song work is, because Mark, have you read the Course in Miracles?
I have, yeah.
Well, I haven't. However, I have a copy.
I have a copy.
And I don't know if everybody knows this.
It's a big book.
It's a big book. There are 3 different parts, right? 3 different kind of micro books. One is the main Course in Miracles. One is the student manual, and one is the teacher manual, which of course is the part that I wanted to read. So I immediately went to that section. And the very first chapter of that section of A Course in Miracles is, who are the teachers? And they're the ones who say yes. That's the only thing that determines who's a teacher and who's not. The call is put out globally, worldwide. Everyone is getting the invitation. Hey, you want to share the good word? The ones who say yes, I am a yes to serving in that way. Those are the teachers. I'm distinguishing this. It's not because they have a degree in positive psychology, although that's really helpful. It's not because they taught high school math in New York City for 12 years. It's not because they have a 7-figure business. It's just because they said yes to the call. So I love this because there are so many of us. There's a rise right now in coaches and healers and transformational guides, right? It's like we're on the rise. It's becoming more and more mainstream. And there is a tendency sometimes for people to feel like, oh, like someone else. In fact, I was just talking with Darla Ledoux yesterday, sharing that when I met her, I felt a little competitive with her because she was focused on retreats and I was focused on retreats. And I was like, how are we going to both do it? You know, it's like, no, the teachers are the ones who say yes. And we all teach the same thing. All of us, just in our own language, because none of us are meant for every single student. So
unbelievable.
Stephanie, that was just for you. So I'm really interested to see or hear or learn more about your soul song work, because it's the same work. I'm very excited to see new perspectives and learn from each other and just share. There's so much for us to offer each other.
Double S, double J, and Marc want to know the soul song work. Post up in here. Obviously, Jesse's link to both her Facebook and your website is in here. And while we're on your website, I've got something called Relax to Your True Desires and Open Up the Channels to Receiving Money with free resource. If we go to the link that I have up, what are we going to get when we click on that?
It's a really, really sweet, short, 10-minute guided meditation that's designed to hit you on 3 levels: intellectual, spiritual, emotional, around creating real wealth. And this is part of like my brand. It's emerging that like part of what I do is help entrepreneurs here and healers and teachers create real wealth. Not just have a 7-figure business or a 6-figure business, whatever it is that they want, but to actually experience a lifestyle of wealth, which means a lifestyle of surplus, a lifestyle of abundance, a lifestyle of vision, and then immediate creation that matches that vision. And, you know, for me, that looks like, you know this already.
Yeah! Look at this new house.
Yeah. I wanted to see that every day. That's part of what real wealth means to me. That's another exercise. But anyway, so the meditation is really good. I just actually re-listened to it. I was like, wow, this is really good. So I highly recommend it. It's free, and it's a way you can listen to it every day. Like I've had clients who listen to it every day. They feel like it's incredibly helpful for this mindset piece, right? Again, then you have to go take the action.
Yep.
You have to make sales.
So now the $1 million question: how far are you guys from an In-N-Out burger?
Oh, that's a good question. Wait, why is that the $1 million question?
Because that's wealth to me. Living close to $1 million, living close to an In-N-Out burger, going animal style. You're so West Coast, you don't know how much privilege you got over there. I gotta fly over there to get in my In-N-Out burger.
There's one. It's like it's like a 10-minute walk.
Yeah. See what happens when you tell the universe you're ready to receive. You get a house next to an In-N-Out burger, people. So let me throw this out there. JJ, we could have talked about a whole bunch of things. I did tease a metaphor that you brought up at the beginning.
Yeah, we gotta talk about anal sex.
Oh, do you want to do it? Okay,
yeah, of course.
I want to be respectful of your time. But so let's talk about anal sex, you and I.
All right.
What was this? Okay, so I have to give some context to this. So JJ comes on a live the other day, and I thought there was a misspelling in it because you were talking about like the art of receiving, but play. You know, and I was like, oh, you're receiving and you're being playful, but she actually meant butt play, BUTT. So, like, can you please clarify this for us? Because I thought that was the metaphor that went around the world.
It's a good one, right?
It's the ultimate one. It's the penultimate one. I haven't heard a better metaphor, so I would love for you to share that with us.
So the metaphor, so we could probably talk about it in a lot of different ways, but the metaphor that I'm interested in is how butt play, anal sex, ass play, whatever you call it, it literally teaches you in your body how to approach the discomfort of real transformation. And for those of you that have experimented with this, you know that there's like, it can be incredibly painful. The more you resist, the harder it is. There's no reason to do it unless you're like, I'm all in, I want this, right? Like, why on earth would you let anyone mess with your asshole unless you were like, yeah, give it to me, I want that. And no matter how much you want it, your body is designed to prevent it, right? The sphincter like does this gripping thing because it's meant to get stuff out, not let stuff in. That's a good thing. This is like our primal biology is meant to like protect us and keep us safe. Just like our subconscious is meant to protect us and keep us safe. So I was just watching people, Mel's like, yeah, let's talk about the ass play. So again, those of you that have played with this will know from experience, but I think most people can imagine this, that in order to actually let something or someone in like go inside of your physical body through the anus, you have to be very conscious, you have to be very relaxed, you have to be very open, you have to be dedicated to surrender, and you have to be willing to soften around the discomfort instead of gripping or resisting around the discomfort. And this, the clients that I have who have this as a place to draw on, right? If they've actually gotten pretty masterful in the realm of ass play, they have a physical reference point for what they need to be cultivating when they're doing sales calls, for example. And so it's just recently become like a real theme in my work because it's a very playful reference point, right? Even for us to be talking about it is like, it's kind of radical, it's a little rebellious, it's a little like racy, and there's a vulnerability that I think everyone can really just feel like, oh yeah, like, so we can be humorous and playful and like deep all at the same time. And side note, that's actually also, even that is a metaphor for, or is like part of the teaching, right?
Now you're getting all meta on our shit. You're talking about metaphors.
Meta on the meta.
Metaphors. The reason why I absolutely love that is we can talk till the cows come home about sort of, surrendering and just kind of the grace and the ease and the joy. But also at the same time, there are very few things that can get me to get it and make my brown skin like turn a little bit red. But you can't tell that I'm like, wow, she's going there with it. Yeah. And I think that's a testament to living life unapologetically, moving forward, and just being like, yo, there's a lot of things systematically that we could talk about that could really help with just easing the way we think about life. And we don't have to go through it so hard, and we don't have to devoid ourselves of levity throughout the process.
In fact, it's part of the medicine for getting us through it, right? Like and I'm speaking about this from very personal experience. My default settings are to get super serious. Like
really?
Yeah. Though, especially if something's vulnerable for me, right? Like it's serious. I want to make sure like everything's okay. My tendency is to feel like there's a problem. Oh my God, there's another problem. Oh God, this thing isn't going into my asshole. Oh fuck, right? Like, okay. And in that space where my program like jumps in and makes everything wrong or scary or problematic, to have levity, to have humor, to have playfulness is so freaking helpful. It's a good thing that my partner's funny.
Let's go meta on this for a second. How much did you think twice about throwing that out there? Because you are an 8-figure coach on Entrepreneur Magazine. You didn't have to put yourself out there with that kind of metaphor, because this is a metaphor that people can take a side on and be like, what?
Totally.
No. Block.
Totally.
How much did you think twice about that?
I'm still thinking twice about it.
Nice.
I mean, seriously, I was like, what are my coaches going to think about this? Because I did not talk with them about this in advance. Is this on brand? What are people getting?
Is this on brand?
So, and I feel like one of the things I like about Facebook Live is that it feels to me like a really safe place to experiment. And the reason that I went ahead and did this was actually in service to one of my clients he's currently doing a vulnerability kind of challenge where he's revealing some things on Facebook that he hasn't revealed before. And I just felt called to join him in that I was like, I can go vulnerable. Let me talk about, and I talked about two things. I talked about my, like this this thing that could be seen as a financial mistake that I recently made. And I don't actually think I connected the dots very well in the live, which is another, it's like, oh, I get to rehearse. Because I actually think that both of these stories are going to play, bye Mel, I love you too. That they're going to play a bigger role in my business moving forward. Like story is so helpful. So it's like, for me, how could I soften around this financial, like, whatever it is. I don't want to call it a problem. I don't want to call it a mistake, but how could I soften and surrender in the present moment? Like, okay, this is happening. I made this choice. This is the consequence. This is not my preference. What is there for me to learn from this? How can I open and soften around this? How can I receive? How can I receive? That's the metaphor of ask play. How much can you receive? And what are the techniques that actually assist you in receiving? And by the way, if you're really good at business and really good at sales and you want to get really good at ask play, then you can go the reverse.
So the Venn diagram works the other way with ask play. Totally. Is that like day 3 of your business? You're like,
yeah, totally.
A new Venn diagram, y'all. Now, yeah. Jesse Johnson, I know for a fact that I'm going to ask you to come back on the show because I think that I always am getting to know you. I wanted to recognize that you and I had a wonderful conversation when I was in New York, and I was trying to figure out why certain things stopped working at a certain moment. And you were there for me, and we also had a very real conversation. I was like, wait, what's going on here, right? And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I have the utmost respect for you, and I have the utmost respect for you putting yourself out there. It's an age where vulnerability is the punk rock thing to do, and you took it to the next level. Like there's not many things I've seen that have been intellectual and putting someone out there. Someone's, the learning out there. So congratulations to that. Y'all.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. We got to connect with Jesse. We got to share this out. So if you like it, if you love it, you want some more of it, if you want to receive some more Jesse, you know how to go to her page. But you also, I would recommend that you share this show out. Jesse Johnson, thank you so much. I know that we only had 30 seconds to connect, but I knew that we would play jazz. We would play jazz.
This is the best.
We did. Here's the other thing. This is why the show is called The Golden Mic. So I want you to imagine in your new home,
yes,
that a golden mic is now coming down from your ceiling and stopping in front of you. And for 2 minutes, that golden mic translates into every language all across the world, and everybody is listening. So when I flip the switch, Jesse, you're live. So Jesse Johnson, you're on the golden mic live.
I love you. And everything that is here in your life right now is here for your benefit. Even the things that feel fucking shitty. This is part of the paradigm shift to receive, right? When we learn how to receive, what that means is not that everything is blissful, just like Mark was talking about at the beginning. It means that everything is received as love, unconditionally, period, the end, no matter what. And from that place, everything softens, everything expands. There are infinite possibilities, and everything that you want is already here. That's the truth. Everything that you want is already here right now. The turning on of your perception that everything that you want is already here right now is in your opening to receive. In your choosing to believe that everything that you can see in your environment, circumstances, relationships, bank account is all a reflection to help you understand who you really are. Choose what you want, claim what you want, be who you want, unapologetically, and forever. Like, lean in, open up your asshole, and let it in. The money that you want, the relationships that you want, the orgasms that you want, the fulfillment that you want, the satisfaction that you want, whatever it is that you truly desire, you desire it because it's already here for you right now. You're literally picking up on the vibrations of the universe saying like, hey, Mark, Jesse, Melanie, Stephanie, these things are here for you. Do you see them? 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 I love you, 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 I love you.
Jesse Johnson, I want you to take that golden mic, hold it up. I want you to smash that golden mic in front of the world because you just dropped it like it's hot. Or you can do something crazy and stick it up your ass or something. Whatever you want to do with that golden mic, it's your golden mic. Jesse Johnson, I love you too. Congratulations. Golden mic number 74. Connect with Jesse. This is what it's all about next. Connect with Jesse, share it out. And this is my final question for everybody watching. You're feeling good and you feel like you're living in your full purpose. What is your responsibility to change history for the better? It's Thursday, which means we're shutting off the golden mic. Take time off of social media and spend time with the ones you love. I'll be back on Monday. I don't go anywhere. And Jessie will be doing her thing as well. We're going to spend time with people we care about. The golden mic is officially off. Jesse Johnson, thank you so much. Love you. And I will see you sooner than you think. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Stick around.